So our third speaker is Craig Ishii. He's the JCL Regional Director for the Pacific Southwest District. He's graduated from UCLA, majored in History and Economics. And as part of his work with the JCL, he's covering areas of tolerance, diversity, and education for Southern California, Southern Nevada, and Arizona regions. So let's hear from you, Craig.
Okay. Well, I guess before I spoke, I just wanted to mention I'm actually the least qualified of any of these members on the panel. Karen and Richard and Grace, they've been doing this work for a lot of years.
18.
Yeah, and that's
19 years.
19 years. That's only 4 years under how old I am. So I always want to just put that out there. I'm not trying to be an expert. I just wanted to. I kind of had three main points, and they're really just a little, actually reiterating a lot what folks on the panel have said today. But the first point is that, as Grace mentioned and Richard mentioned, and Karen mentioned too, is that Redress is not over. They wanted us to be this last program today, that is the museum, just to kind of show that this Redress movement, we're doing a lot of celebrating. Like, it's the 20th anniversary, Redress remembered, like Richard said, but the campaign is not really done yet. There's unfinished business. And so just as I kind of say, I'm really happy that my grandparents, my grandma, my grandfather, on both sides, obtained redress, I have to think about the fact that there's a big part of our population, of our community, because JLAs are part of our community, that haven't received redress yet. And so as much as we celebrate, 20 years later, we really want to get the message home today that, redress is not finished yet, and that we hope that everyone will walk away with kind of a sense of continuing what we call the struggle, or continuing this effort to obtain that redress. I think a perfect example of kind of this continuing effort is NCRR, and then CFJ after that, is that one of the inspiring stories that was told to me by a couple of Richard's colleagues were that after redress was finished, NCRI, like Richard said, had a celebration, but then their new campaign, it was really cool, actually became getting redress for those who were ineligible. And so the Office of Redress Affairs, which was this person named Bob Bratt, they would administer these checks, and he was really trying to help to give checks to as many people as possible who were eligible, but not everybody was. And so NCRR really had this big effort to say, well, these people that can't get it, how can we advocate or litigate or get these folks that redress payment. And so it's kind of like the job is never finished. And then when CFJ was formed, it's continuing, like the job is still not finished. And so that was kind of my first point. My part's going to be a lot shorter than the rest because, like I said, I just have a few points, and I don't want to pretend like I'm super experienced. So the second point is selling it to our community. I see some folks that I know in the audience from collegiate Nikkei groups. So hello, but we're happy that you folks are here and that you're kind of partnering with CFJ this year, because really what we're starting to notice, especially with the JA community, is that we're getting more and more complacent, actually. I don't like to usually point people out, so I always point out my parents because it's the easiest one. But whenever I come home, it's a little bit difficult for me to talk to them about some of the, I guess, more progressive work that we do in JCL, like things with immigration reform, with Japanese Latin American redress even, because it's very comfortable in Orange County. But one of the things that I think JCL, NCRR, CFJ, even the museum really work to do is to get our community to care, is to get our community that is becoming a little bit more comfortable to say, well, we do need to stand in solidarity with other communities, and we actually need to look to our own community to redress and get reparations for those parts of our community that haven't received it yet. And so really, the main message is that for our community, we really need to think of these selling points. Sometimes it's events like these, but sometimes it's just talking to people who are in our organizations, people that are in our family. It's difficult, but it's not that difficult when you bring it down to kind of that personal level. And so the second point is that we really do need to link it back to our community. And this is a really easy issue to link it back to our community because there are members of our community. And so that's kind of the second point. And then the third point is that in order to make a difference right now, we do have a bill, or we will have a bill. I'm presuming we'll have a bill in this upcoming year, and what we need people to do is we're looking for people to write letters. We have example letters that you can sign just today if you're interested. We're also, one of the most effective ways is to communicate in person. My very first, no, that wasn't my very first. My second real kind of congressional visit was with Christine this last year. We went to visit an office, my Congressperson Gary Miller. And we met with his head staff. It was kind of an interesting experience because the last time I did it was for this thing called the API Policy Summit, which is in Sacramento, and we advocate on a lot of different issues for the Asian Pacific Islander community there. But this is really the first time that I had visited my own congressperson, and we visited their district office. And it was interesting because by being able to talk with, with that staff person, even though we weren't talking with Gary Miller himself, or Congressman Miller, it still seemed like we had kind of an effect. He said that he would relay the information back, and I mean, if maybe he mentioned it in passing, but still just having that communication was meaningful to us because it felt like we were making a difference. But I think it was meaningful in terms of we're still communicating with that office, to try to get him to be a co-sponsor, to try and get him to be a little bit more supportive. But when we think back to our own experiences, usually the ways that we're convinced are not necessarily through brochures or letters or websites, but it's through talking with people like Grace, talking with people like Richard. That's kind of how I got involved in the process too. And so we do encourage you to organize in your local context, to talk with the people that are close to you, and then to, yes, help us write letters. And if we're hoping to make a visit within our individual areas, everybody has a congressperson, everyone has of course, has a senator. And so we're looking to kind of communicate with these people. And then the last, of course, is that we also need donations, of course, for CFJ. I'm wearing my CFJ hat today. I think whether your donation is small or large, it's always really helpful. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but for me personally, when the No on 8, Proposition 8 campaign came up, and I heard how much we were down in terms of fundraising, my nonprofit salary is not huge, but I said, I can easily donate $100, and each of those $100 go a really long way to help us fundraise. And in terms of that campaign, whereas we were down $10 million at one point, we just heard at a press conference recently that now we're only $500,000 down. And so every donation counts. And so we do encourage folks who are in the audience, and we will put out newsletters too if you sign up for our mailing list. We hope that, you'll donate to this campaign because Christine is an excellent staff person, but in order to fund her, we need those individual donations and large donations too. So that's my little spiel, but we hope that folks learn something and that you'll consider working with us in the future, whether it's through a letter or visiting or donating. And I've even actually learned a lot today too, just by sitting next to some of our panelists. So thank you.